currently grilling on a calm summer night, but here in the video, I am unearthing pawpaw seedlings back in the spring of this year. I planted this laundry sink full of stratified pawpaw seeds organized into rows by parent trees in the spring of 2022. They overwintered in place, but survival rate and vigor were not great. It was about as successful as any of this time-lapse footage I shoot of myself from behind. Emphasis on behind. And cut. Don't mind me just digging a shallow grave in my fairy backyard at night. We'll be back to that later to get the whole story. I should mention that I've written an instructional comic on growing pawpaws from seed, and I've put a link to a PDF in the description of this video. It's much more descriptive and less, meandering. Right now I'm thrifting my way east from DeKalb to Villa Park, Illinois to see some friends perform, but on my way I happen to notice something in West Chicago. If you know me, you know I break for pawpaws, so don't follow too closely. Do my eyes deceive me? Nay, 'tis a pawpaw here in West Chicago. Quite a few of them. All clustered together in one little spot. I'll have to check back in a few years. Pawpaws are kind of weird plants, which was part of their allure for me. Asimina triloba grows mostly in the Midwest, Appalachia, and the South up into southern Canada and upstate New York. Since they are native plants, at least if you live in that range, the easiest way to grow them is to simply plant their seeds or whole fruits that critters have disturbed in the fall. That is what happened here. Some two-legged critter, probably one with a YouTube channel, planted a broken fruit here in this park. The fruits can have many seeds and result in a cluster of different seedlings. That may be how the tree or trees in West Chicago were planted. They can also die back to the root and send up multiple suckers from one tree. This can happen often when transplanting a seedling or even grafted trees, which can be a bummer. That's why it's a good idea to plant rootstock from quality seeds, and especially those of early fruiting varieties if you want to try to push their native limits into USDA hardiness zone 4. Here we see that cluster of seedlings from that fruit that critter planted. The seedlings first form a deep taproot underground and are often best overwintered in the ground their first year to be then transplanted elsewhere or into containers for grafting. Overwintering them in containers can be a challenge, and it's best if you can simply simulate them being in the ground. Ooh, what are those? What are those? Pawpaw seeds need a cold dormant period to sprout, and in turn pawpaw plants need a cold dormant period every year in the winter. Pawpaw seed viability is reduced if they freeze or dry out, so standard practice is to store fresh pawpaw seeds in a slightly damp plastic zipper bag in your fridge, not your freezer. This is a process called stratification that's pretty typical for native plants. With my drip upgraded and my record collection enhanced, it's on to Villa Park. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce Paul Velat and Michael Perkins, aka Slow Cooker.
Don't look at me. Us, here at the Fuel and Cream Look both ways when you cross the street. All right.
More from Slow Cooker in a bit, but now back to sprouting pawpaws. So this method worked for me last year pretty well, and I'm going to continue on with it. Each of these cinder blocks that's been turned on its side is filled with soil. It's open on the bottom and topped with a layer of wood chips, wood mulch. So these seedlings, let's see if I can get a better shot. These seedlings here, there, are all from the largest fruit, which I suspect was a Potomac from Pawpaw Fest 2022. These, I'm not sure. I planted the others first, and we're just beginning to see these sprout. I'll show you my key. The smaller seedlings are beginning to emerge from cells planted with seeds from Chris Rice, which I believe are a cross of Shenandoah and KSU Atwood. Pawpaw seeds focus their energy on growing their taproot below ground and are slow to emerge above ground. At the earliest, usually in the heat of July, at the latest, the following year. Mine were planted a little late in the spring, and it's now August 1st when they're beginning to emerge. The hole you saw earlier now holds the laundry sink, which has had holes drilled in it. It has been lined with landscaping fabric and filled with soil, topped with wood mulch, and loaded with pawpaw seeds from Albie R, tree that I was attempting to graft in earlier videos. I haven't seen much in the way of sprouts yet, other than earwig sprouts. Oh, there's a few. Just a few. Oh my goodness. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. All right, so hopefully they will not have any ill effect on the seedlings. One has emerged, although this does not look good. More are emerging. Again, with this sort of weird rotted look, perhaps it is time to remove these covers. I'm not exactly sure. I guess it would result in a few less earwigs. Well, as you can see, we're having some success here, but definitely some difficulties. I think I planted far too thick a layer of mulch over the top of these in hopes to get the seed coat to come off, which is successful in that regard, but I think some of these leaves began to rot as they were emerging, just taking too long to get above that mulch line. So I've cleared some out, unfortunately broken a few in the process, so perhaps lesson learned there. We'll see how these overwinter. Pawpaws transplant best when young, but they can be kept as seedlings in deep containers up to a couple of years, and we'll talk about that in a bit.
All right, this is going to be our last tour of the night. Your slow cooker. If you enjoy what you heard, throw something in the tip jar. Believe it or not, we're going to be back next week. So if you like it, if you like us, come back next week. We'll be here
Wednesday, August 2nd.
6 o'clock, 6 to 9.
Thank you very much. slow cooker. We'll be here next week. Thanks for listening. Don't forget our tip jar. We appreciate you.
Deep pots from Stewie and Sons are pretty standard for growing pawpaws. They measure 4 by 4 by 14 inches. They have drainage, and they fit 9 to a milk crate handily. These containers are also really easy to overwinter by packing them in between 2 garden beds and lining either end with bales of hay. But maybe you're only sprouting a few pawpaw seeds, or you're on a budget, or you're sprouting a bunch of pawpaw seeds that you want to give away. Well, you can get crafty and reuse containers by simply cutting the tops off and adding drainage, like this soda 2-liter, or perhaps this cat litter container. Recently, when I was on a hunt for May apples, I noticed that these cups from the chain famous for their rotating pizza were just about the perfect size. The native range of Casey's General Stores looks like an oddly shifted map of the native range of Asimina triloba, perhaps where they'll be grown after a few more years of climate change. So, this is my old laundry sink, and it's going to be my pawpaw sprouter this year. It was last year as well. Excuse me. And, you can see, I thought it would drain, but through its original drain hole, but clearly it does not. So, I borrowed John Prendergast's hammered drill, and with a masonry bit, I put a bunch of holes in the bottom of this, and it's sitting on a layer of rocks. I'm going to add a layer of rocks. Some rocks that we had in there before, line it with landscaped fabric, and then put in a light soil. Last year, I had a bunch of pawpaws in here that failed to, well, they didn't fail, a bunch of them failed to thrive. There are some that seem like they're okay, but the problem was I think the soil was not well drained enough, and they were prone to root rot. The reason was the soil was like clay mixed with sand, which I think got very cement-like. So I'm adding a bunch more vermiculite and wood chips and other things this year to get this going. So let's do it. Another reason to grow pawpaws from seeds is that interesting genetic variations do show up. For instance, I sprouted this variegated seedling last year as a surprise to me, and it did come up this spring. However, I don't know if it will survive its transplant to its new location this hot year, or if it is even viable. But that doesn't mean other interesting genetic individuals won't show up. Superior cultivars of pawpaws are propagated through grafting, but every one of those trees will produce seeds, so they will continue to surprise us. And now the famous flipping clown of DeKalb's Pizza Villa. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.